toward the end of I'm Dickens, He's Fenster, I did a movie with Jim Garner and Lee Remick called The Wheeler Dealers. And I get a call from Filmways,
Oh, right.
and they produced that movie. And they said, when we were previewing this movie, we got a large response on you from the people who filled out their preview cards. And we want to make a deal with you. And so a deal was made, and that then, Mace and Sherwin were my managers. And we made a deal. We talked to, I met with John Calley, who was, Marty Rantzoff was the head of Filmways. John, who later became a studio head everywhere, John, very bright guy. John was the Marty's assistant then. And we met, we had dinner, and John told me about 3 projects. One was a film called The Americanization of Emily, written by Patty Chayefsky. Another was a film called The Loved One, which was about Forest Lawn, or it was a takeoff on it. And a third was a project for television involving Charles Addams cartoons. And now I was a huge fan of Charles Addams. In college, my roommate and I would buy an extra copy if we could put together our funds.
Were these in the New Yorker at the time, or these were?
Well, he was in the New Yorker, but they also published, slender volumes of his cartoons.
Oh, so you were a big
they
fan.
were this big. Oh, tremendous fan. And we would frame them and put them up. And down there on 34th Street, an area which is now the emergency room of Union Memorial Hospital, is where I was living at the time. Doug Coulter, whose dad had been a CBS executive, Doug and I cut out Charles Addams cartoons and framed them and put them up in our room. That was our only wall decoration. Were panels from the Charles Addams cartoons. And so that's how I felt. Now, I was crazy about Patty Chayefsky's writing, and I wanted to do The Americanization of Emily, and Julie Andrews was going to be in it. And also Jim Garner was going to be. And finally, Jim Coburn played the part that I would like to have played. But I could do only one of these projects. And the fastest moving one was the Addams Family. And so, and I'm really lucky that that's what I ended up doing, because many things have happened to me that are good as a result of the Addams Family.
Sure.
And I'm glad that David Levy was the executive producer, and that Nat Perrin was hired later on, after we'd done our presentation film. Nat Perrin got involved, and he was a blessing. I was fortunate to be involved up front. I went to this meeting, and Marty Ransoff led the meeting. But he said, you'll play the butler. He said, it'll be a non-exclusive contract. And it just sounded like something that would never happen. I started thinking about, I'm playing the butler, I'll have to get lifts and I'll have to do all this. And so I got a call later that day, the meeting, because there was this guy sitting somewhat awkwardly in the center of the room in a straight back chair. And he said something I said, excuse me, I knew all the people in the room. I knew Marty, I knew John, Callie was there, and Al Simon. So I knew them, but I didn't know this guy in the middle of the room. And I said, what have you done? And he says, well, I was vice president of Young and Rubicam for about 20 years. And he said, and then I was vice president of NBC in charge of programming. I mean, he'd been a big executive, but he'd had a hassle with the networks. And he was doing his best to get back into television through producing shows. And it was a tricky route that he planned for himself, but he ended up being very successful in that area. But I got a phone call from him about 2 hours after the meeting. And he said, I'd like to meet with you this afternoon. Okay. And so where? Beverly Hills Polo Lounge. So over martinis, he said to me, I don't want you to play the butler. He said, this show is really Father Knows Best with different people. I want you to be the father. And I started thinking, gee, that makes a lot of sense.